Ricciardo goes for it from a long way back. This would be sensational if he makes it. And do you know what? He has made it. Smiles will be out at 18 years and 227 days old. Max Verstappen wins a Formula One Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton wins the Portuguese Grand Prix. Hamilton has more wins than any other driver in Formula One history. And he is not done yet.
Welcome to Getting a Grip F2 and F3, powered by the Inner Sanctum. I'm joined by Ali and Jackie. With the sad news of the passing of Adrian Campos, the former F1 driver and the founder of Campos Racing, we want to pass on our condolences to his family and all who knew him. We'd like to dedicate this episode to the life of Adrian and the legacy that he has left behind. Adrian started his legacy in single-seater racing in Formula 3 in the mid-80s, finishing third in 1985, then moving into Formula 3000. He raced for Minardi for the 1987 and 88 seasons before stepping away from the sport and into Spanish touring cars, where he won the championship in 1994. After this, he moved into team management, founding the Campos Motorsport team in 1997. The team has raced in championships such as GP2, GP3, Formula E, obviously F2 and F3, where most modern fans know it from. It has championships in the Spanish Formula 3 as well as GP2, with drivers such as Fernando Alonso and Antonio Garcia among their alumni. We interviewed Alex Peroni on his thoughts on Adrian's legacy.
We'll talk about Adrian Campos passing away in recent days. First off, what sort of legacy do you believe he's left on motorsport?
Yeah, big one. He's always been involved since, well, I guess he first came into the scene through his driving when he got to Formula One. But then after that, he was super important in getting a lot of Spanish drivers to F1. In fact, a lot of them also coming through his team, but also managing them. And he's always had that eye for driving talent. And, he was a figure for that, but also just his personality and just how humble and such a nice guy he was. So, yeah, for sure, he'll leave a legacy behind, and we'll always remember him.
And for you personally, what sort of impression did he leave on you?
He was always an interesting person. Like, he was very inspirational, and like he would always know what to say the right thing to get the best out of me. Like, if it was at the workshop, I'd come in and I'll be ready in train. He'll come in and say, "Oh, Alex, can I have a word?" And we'll talk about the year and what's coming up. And I would always leave positive and ready to tackle any challenges. Or if it was at the track, I'd have a bad race, and he would come in and console me and just get me back up and going. And or if I had a good one. So yeah, he was always very inspirational and always got the best out of me, which I think was one of his best strengths.
And along with that, just the team in general, like how much did he bring to it, and how was he with the rest of the group behind the scenes?
Oh, huge. I mean, that team was his, and it's Campos is different to all the other teams I've been through. It's obviously the boss of it, and that team was all his, and he was the one that got me to race for him, and I'm sure a lot of other drivers, and that's why I just feel super bad for the whole family. For sure they're all hurting over there now, and but I'm sure they'll be able to bounce back and definitely continue going on in his name.
Moving on to the F2 news of the week, we've got some driver lineup changes. So we'll start off with the Dan Tickham replacing Yuki Tsunoda at Carlin. He's moving over from Dams Racing. Then we've also got Roy Nassani, who is taking Dan Tickham's spot in a way by moving over to Dams from Trident. And lastly, we have Teo Porcher, who's come up from F3 with Art GP. But in a way, you can also say that he's moving from HWA because he raced with them in the final 4 races of the F2 last season. So do you guys have any opinions on these moves?
I'm just generally excited for Roy Nassani. He's tested a lot with Williams last year. I think he had 3 FP1 practices. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. He's had an interesting career so far, so hopefully he can pull some stuff out for Dams.
Also with Nassani, he's currently in the High-Tech Grand Prix and he finished 2nd in the first race. So we'll be seeing how he does in that over the next couple of weeks.
I'm looking forward to seeing Tickham. Obviously, he was famously banned a few years for 2 years from racing over the incident at Silverstone, but he seemed to bounce back from that. He finished 14th last season with 2 podium finishes, and obviously a development driver at Williams in the F1. So obviously there's a lot of faith there from Williams that he will progress into an F1 driver.
So moving on, Giuliano Alessi leaves the Ferrari Driver Academy and F2 in general. It was revealed last year that there may be some funding issues, which I guess kind of shows the stamina that's required to participate in the lower formulas. You need to bring a lot of money to the teams for them to want to keep you there, as well as skill. So what are our thoughts, I guess, seeing a driver who joined the Ferrari Driver Academy in 2016 leaving? He joined at the same time that Charles Leclerc did. I guess, what are our thoughts on his departure?
It's a shame, that's for sure. It's always a shame to see people leave a sport for financial reasons. And especially in this circumstance, because everyone seems to talk about, oh, these people are the sons of billionaires, so they'll get to race and get into F1, like just purely because of the funding in the early formulas. So it's sad to see someone that has the talent to potentially go further and then not be able to do it because they can't bring in the money.
It begs the question almost to ask how many how many drivers we're going to lose due to sponsorship, because I believe in an interview that was done on our F1 podcast with Alex Peroni, he said he was offered a seat at Carlin, I believe, in F2, but there wasn't enough funding there. So it just begs the question, how many of these drivers are we going to lose due to funding?
And that's it. And it was a real shame for Alex Peroni, because he's obviously got the skill and he has the ability to step up there. But until you make it into Formula One, you're not getting paid for this. You're having to supply something to the team. So it's unfair in some ways, but I guess looking at it from a team perspective, they need to be able to secure the funding, because that helps them get up on top. It helps them progress through the sport. Yeah, so it's sad to see Giuliano go, but I hope whatever he does in the future, he can really shine. And Ali, did you want to take us through the Formula 3 changes or any new signings that we've got so far?
Oops, I'm muted. I believe there are 2 new signings for Genza. So Aussie Callan Williams and French driver Pierre-Louis Chevet. So Williams is from Perth. It's his 2nd year in the F1 system after finishing 31st last season after 18 starts. Chevet is an 18-year-old driver from France, finishing 19th in his F3 debut year last year from 4 starts, and had a successful debut in the European Championships, finishing 5th from 6 starts and having 2 podium finishes. And he's also moving over from High Tech. So with the with seats still free, we have 1 at Genza, 2 at Carlin, 2 at Race Lab, and 1 at Art. Trident, Campos, and Jerez still yet to name their drivers, and High Tech and Prima are the only two that have completed their rosters for 2021.
It is interesting, like F2 obviously has a lot earlier of a start, so most of their rosters are filled out, or at least have one of the two drivers named. But because the F3 is not starting until May, we've got a while to see these names come in. And would I be expecting names to be coming in as late as the last weekend of April? Of course not, but you just don't know with like what's going on with the entire pandemic. So you don't know if people are going to be available at the same time.
That's it. And it's tough for the drivers, all these drivers that might be up for a seat, because they need to choose whether they're going to be spending time on getting in a car and practicing, how much time they need to be putting into upkeep, because it's such a physical sport that I don't think a lot of people understand.
There is and the money factor obviously is the biggest contributor for a lot of these guys and girls, whether they will do this year in case events get cancelled or get majorly delayed. And with as you said, it's a sport, and you forget about how much physical work goes into it. So not only are they going to be worrying about finances, but they're going to be worrying about staying in pristine shape and having to pay for time in the car as well.
Exactly. But I think we'll see soon who's been confirmed, and hopefully it comes out sooner rather than later so the drivers can properly prepare. Not that I think that they'd be slacking off right now. The off season is probably a really good time for them to maintain and hopefully not get coronavirus like some of the Formula One drivers have. But it'll be interesting to see regardless. Thank you for tuning in to Getting a Grip F2 and F3.
Ricardo goes for it from a long way back. This would be sensational if he makes it. And do you know what? He has made it. Smiles will be out at 18 years and 227 days old. Max Verstappen wins a Formula One Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton wins the Portuguese Grand Prix. Hamilton has more wins than any other driver in Formula One history. And he is not done yet.